My skin has never been as freshly rotten. Bathed in blood products from deaditesondeck.com has pampered my body until it is as fresh as the day they laid me in the grave. Head on over to Deadites on Deck today and get that fresh from the grave feeling.
Hi, I am Ozzy the Wonder Squirrel. Don't forget to watch Evil Dead Chick on Deadites on Deck on YouTube. Oh, and subscribe, man!
Watching movies, we both get chick, and the gang, funny, strange, hysterical, or just plain bad. This weekend just got amazing. It's a watch-along weekend. Horror, sci-fi, comedy, and more. We got it all this weekend. This weekend just got amazing. It's a watch-along weekend. Horror, sci-fi, comedy, and more. We got it all this weekend.
Howdy, gang. Let me get this overlay up here. Well, now I seem to have lost my overlay for. There it is. All right. Y'all know me. Y'all know I never have it together whenever I get ready to get on here. But hey, the poet. And it is good to be back. I am almost at full strength. I still feel a little achy sometimes, usually at nighttime, but overall, I'm feeling much better than I was. So, and I feel like I can talk better. Hopefully, no coughing fits tonight as we navigate through the world of Psycho from 1960, directed by Alfred Hitchcock and starring Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. Hey, Stacy. I don't know. I can't pick a best scene because I think every scene with Anthony Perkins in it is fantastic, Stacy. I mean, that's my honest opinion. I couldn't imagine anybody else playing Norman Bates other than Anthony Perkins. I have never been to Universal Studios, Stacy. Hopefully me and Steve can go sometime in the near future, but as of yet, I think Steve went years and years and years and years ago, but I have never been. But I think Steve's wanting to go see the Universal Monster stuff that they've got now. But here in a little bit, we are going to be watching Psycho for this watch along weekend. And unfortunately, I was not able to find a for free copy for you guys and gals to watch if you didn't own your own copy. I am actually watching, because I can't watch my 4Ks back here. I'm watching the Blu-ray 50th anniversary edition that Universal put out a few years ago. And I just wanted to let everybody that's in here right now Now, know that technically I'm queued up about, oh, hold on here. I'm going to run this back. And I'm not going to turn it on until, hold on a minute, folks. Because this has got one of those blamed universal kind of screensavers or whatever that comes up when you've got it paused too long. But hold on just a second. And hopefully we can get this started soon so that it doesn't do that again. All right. So I am currently queued up about 33 seconds in on this Blu-ray where it says a Paramount release. So let's see if it stays there. DePoe, you say, wonder where everyone is. This movie's a classic. Well, you know, DePoe, I've noticed that people are watching my stuff more kind of on the replay. But yeah, I don't know if everybody's just busy doing, you know, their own thing. But I do agree with you that it is a classic. And if y'all hear something that sounds like dogs getting at each other, it's not my dog. Steve has it on dog TV back there in the living room. So y'all may hear that from time to time. But yes, the poet, I agree with you that this movie is definitely a classic. Stacy, you say, have you seen Perkins and Pretty Poison or Remember My Name? Those are two other excellent ones he did. I have seen Pretty Poison, but it's been a few years since I've seen it. You're very welcome. You say, love this movie. It's great. Thanks. Guys, gals, I did not think that I was going to do this, really. So, since this cough still wants to linger around at certain points in times, I may take myself out of the stream if I get to coughing really badly. So y'all don't have to sit here and listen to me cough until I get it under control, and then I'll come back on here. Also, I have not yet ate anything for my snack, so I may have to go away during the film and just take myself out of the stream for a few minutes while I get myself something to eat, which I'm sure you regulars will not mind that because you're used to me doing that kind of stuff and taking bathroom breaks and all that other stuff. But anyway, let's just go ahead before this thing flips on over to my screensaver again. We'll go ahead and get the do the countdown, and we'll go ahead and get this watch along started because this is a little bit longer movie than I normally have on here. It's kind of close to 2 hours. So, and if anybody comes in later and needs a timestamp, I'll be glad to give it to them. Anybody that's in here right now, if you get out of sync a little bit, need a timestamp, just ask me. I'll be glad to do so. So here we go. Let's do our 3, 2, 1 and get this party started. So 3, 2, 1, press play. And we are off and running with Psycho. And yes, this is Psycho from 1960, folks, not the remake. I've always liked the intro to Psycho, by the way, even though it seems sort of simple and stuff, but I still think it works to kind of almost put you on edge before you're even into the movie. The Bernard Herrmann jabs. And Janet Leigh is Marion Crane. And I have read the novel by Robert Bloch, which is very good as well. But I think what Alfred Hitchcock did with the material and what the writer did with Robert Bloch's original material was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah, music by Bernard Herrmann. And two, this looks absolutely fantastic on both Blu-ray and 4K. It's just absolutely beautiful. Yeah, exactly, the poet. You must have read my mind. You said even though this is black and white, it looks good. And this is such a great classic movie that y'all may discover that I stopped talking about the movie and I'm actually watching it. So please excuse me if I do that. Oh, that's cool, Stacy. You say you were on the set of the remake as it was being made. It was a fun experience. William H. Macy did well as Martin in the Martin Balsam role, and fun to see the historic scenes and the environment he recreated. Thanks, guys. Oh, yes, there was no doubt that I'm sure that they were having a lot of fun. I just felt too, even though I hold no ill will towards Vince Vaughn or Anne Heche, God rest her soul, I just think that they were terribly miscast for the roles of Norman Bates and Marion Crane. Now they take a simple scene like this opening scene with Marion and her boyfriend Sam, and they turn it into just a fantastic piece of cinema. Just this little part here at the beginning. DeVoe, you say Norman would beat Freddie if the two would meet. Oh, he probably would, because I feel like Norman Bates is a crafty individual with a lot of skeletons in the closet. And something else that I have noticed about this movie, and it doesn't make me dislike it. For 1960, the conversations like they're having right here with Marion and Sam, and Sam says, when after we eat our steak, she's talking about respectability, that they could see each other, and it it need to be respectable. And Sam says, well, what happens after the meal? We send sister off to the movies, turn mama's picture to the wall. There's a lot of innuendos there. And I just feel like that it's edgy for 1960, but that Alfred Hitchcock had the cojones to move ahead with that and create this fantastic film, this fantastic classic film. It's obvious that Marion and Sam, as playfully as the innuendos are, they're thrown out there left and right. You can still tell that the two characters are just madly in love with each other. And it goes back and forth between being playful and serious, because then Sam is saying, "Hey, Marion, do you want to cut this thing off? Go find somebody that's available and all that." And she says, "I'm thinking of it." And then he says, "How could you even think of a thing like that?" So, and there's Alfred Hitchcock's cameo out there, or right there outside of the bank where, or the loan office where um, Marion works. And that is Pat Hitchcock there. That is Alfred Hitchcock's daughter, as Marion's co-worker. And this is kind of as if this dude, nowadays, this guy would seem sort of lecherous. But back in 1960, I'm sure it was just common practice for an older man to kind of, whether he was married or not, to kind of come on to a young, attractive woman and not think anything about it. But that it does seem that he's flirting with Marion. He says, "You know what I do with unhappiness? I buy it off." And he's, waving around this money. People don't generally do that kind of stuff nowadays. But again, we got to think about the time period in which this was made and it came out. And he makes the comment about being able to keep his mouth shut as well. And we're going to see here, and this has been brought up too, that, in the beginning scenes, Marion has a white bra and, white pretty much white everything, like kind of innocent. Now that she's thinking about taking this money and running, pretty much she's decided that's what she's going to do. She's packed up. She has a black bra and a black slip and all that. The clothes and the undergarments are much darker. But I never thought of the Marion Crane character as a bad character. Maybe misguided, maybe confused, maybe a woman that feels like she's on the edge and she's making a mistake. But we're going to see that by the time that she gets to the Bates Motel, which will be here in a little while, that she's, she's gotten a different car and stuff like that. So she spent some of this money. But she actually does some figuring to see how much she needs to pay back. Now, the figuring that she does is incorrect mathematically. However, it goes to show you that she was too good of a woman to go through with that. And she's imagining what's going to happen. She's going over in her head what's going to happen when she meets up with Sam. Oh, thank you, Stacy. I appreciate that. Uh-oh. So she had told her boss, Mr. Lowry, that she was going to, take the money to the bank and then she was going to go home and lie down because she had a headache. Well, now he's singing her heading out of town. So apparently, Marion had gotten really sleepy the night before as she was headed towards Fairvale, where Sam is. And she's pulled over on the side of the road, and a cop notices. And this is a kind of tense moment because we don't know at this point in time, especially if you're watching um, this for the first time. You might be thinking, "Oh no, um, she's gonna get caught by this cop." The poet, you say no more remakes unless the movie didn't do good at the box office. Right. Yeah. I don't, you know, I might like to see what Norman, what Anthony Perkins' son, Osgood, could do. But I just, if I really was to tell you the honest truth about my feelings about it, I would just assume they just leave it alone. So, gang, just to let you know that it's 7:26 now, so I'm probably going to go ahead and get me something to eat about 7:30. And y'all just continue to watch the movie if that's what you're doing, if you're watching along. And I will be back as soon as I can. I'm just going to take a short bathroom break and also get me something to eat, and then I'll come back on here if y'all don't mind me eating my soup as I finish watching this movie with you guys and gals. I could not find it on either of those to poet. I wish that I could have. I don't know if it's because it's it's considered a classic movie and it's a well-known movie and all that. Um I mean, I suppose you could try looking those two places. Or I could, if you'd like me to, while I'm, not on the screen, because I think StreamYard's still causing us to freeze up if we go to another tab. But I'd be glad to check that for you in a couple of minutes. If I do find it there, I'd put a link in the chat for you. And of course, Marion notices while she's haggling with California Charlie there to get her car switched, she sees that the cop is across the street, watching things. All right, gang. So I'm going to go away for a few minutes, but y'all keep watching. And I'm also going to look and see the poet if the movie's streaming on like Pluto or Roku or anything. But I will be right back. All right, gang, I'm back. I hate to be away during the introduction to um, Marion meeting Norman Bates, um, but we really haven't got into the juicy stuff just yet. So, but I have my soup here. Like I said, even though I'm feeling much better, sometimes, hey, Stalin, sometimes at night I get a little achy feeling, so I did take a little medicine to help with that. Because I want to feel as best as I can be when I'm doing these watch alongs with you guys, or for you guys, or however you want to look at it. Uh, so now Marion is hearing what appears to be Norman having an argument with his mother. And mother is not happy that Norman has invited Marion up to the house for some sandwiches and stuff. Oh, that's okay, Stalin, but feel free, you can always go back and watch this on the replay and you can get the movie synced up if you own the movie. Um, and, I know we all can't be on even me, I'm not even on a time schedule. The poet, you say you'd rather go to Crystal Lake than the Bates Motel. May have more places to get away if you went to Crystal Lake. Oh, and by the way, the poet, or if anybody else was wondering, while I was away, I did look and I could not find where Psycho was streaming on Pluto or Roku or anything. It has in the past streamed on Pluto, but apparently it's not right now. So, because of Mother, Norman is having to bring the sandwiches and milk down to Marion. More than likely, the poet, it is because of Universal. I would be willing to bet, because Universal is one of those tough customers when it comes to films. So we see that Norman does not want to go into Marion's room, even though she's invited him, to bring the sandwiches and milk into her room. And so he, first he says they'll go in the office, but then there's a parlor to the rear of the office, and he, says it would be nicer in there. What kind of soup do I have? Well, it's just a can of store brand bean with bacon soup, the poet. I tell you, when I'm sick or when I'm recovering from being sick, there's nothing like the comfort food of soup for me. I mean, I know some people have different ideas of what comfort food is, but for me, soups are always a go to thing. Chicken noodle, yeah. I've started getting that Campbell's home style chicken noodle. I mean, I don't guess it's necessarily heartier or anything like that, but it just has more of something in it. The noodles are stronger or something like that. And a lot of movies don't have these deep kind of psychological or philosophical conversations between characters. Um, and some people might find that boring when they do that, but I don't, especially with this movie, the way it's set up, um, allowing Marion and Norman to kind of get to know each other. And you really see, especially here in a minute or so, um, that Norman is very torn and that there's something going on in his mind, and we're not sure exactly what that is at this point. So Norman explains in his own way how after his father died, his mother had the strain of having to raise Norman on her own. And then she met another man a few years later who talked her into buying the motel. And then Norman says he died. And when two men died so close to each other, um, she just couldn't handle it. And we seem to see a sense of guilt with Norman. And if you are watching this for the first time, you may not understand that guilt. But if you stick with the movie and you watch it to its conclusion, you will know where that guilt comes from. And I don't want to give that away because there may be some of you watching this right now, or some of you that watch this later that have not, I have to take that into account. That some of you may have not seen Psycho or not seen the original Psycho, right? Now, this is when Norman's demeanor changes in an instant. When Marion suggests that maybe Norman's mother should be put in an institution. And he becomes visibly upset. He says, "Have you ever seen the inside of one of those places? The laughing and the tears and the cruel eyes studying you. My mother there." And then he laughs and says, but she's harmless. She's as harmless as one of those stuffed birds. And then he goes on to say, people always mean well. They cluck their thick tongues and shake their heads and suggest, oh, so very delicately. And at that point, Norman, if you're watching his eyes and stuff, he seems almost on the verge of rushing over to Marion and doing something terrible. But then he calms back down and says, you know, I think about it and my mother needs me. And she just goes a little mad sometimes. An often quoted line, folks. We all go a little mad sometimes. And if you haven't realized it by this point, Marion's not a bad person. And she's talking about she stepped into a private trap back in Phoenix and she's got to go back and she's got to fix things. So I believe Marion. I believe had what happens here in the next few minutes had not happened, that she would have went back to Phoenix and she would have tried to fix things as best she could. I thought, the poet, that the number was like 40,000, which was probably a lot of money back in 1960. Stacy, as far as I know, the chat's working. I mean, the poet, is the chat working for you okay, Stalin, if you're still in here? Is it working okay for you guys? Seems okay for you to poet? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that there weren't some major problems with it, because from my side, it looked okay. Yeah, 40,000. And she's taken away 700, which is what she paid after she traded in on her car. But if you look at her mathematics, they're not exactly 100% correct. So we're coming up on the the shower scene, the big shower scene of Psycho, that pretty much everybody talks about. This is a classic horror scene and kind of, set a tone for slasher films to come. So we see through the foggy shower curtain that the door opens, and it appears that there's someone on the other side, but it doesn't look like Norman. And it appears to be a woman who is unfortunately going to stab Marion to death in the shower. And that is chocolate syrup, substituting for blood. In this scene coming up where she reaches out her hand and she ends up grasping the shower curtain and pulls the shower curtain off, I always thought that was so creepy, especially the first time I saw it. And they show a lot without really showing a lot. There's definitely no gratuitous nudity in this. And it's not overly gory, but it's still effective. It's still very effective. Very well shot. And kudos to Janet Leigh for pulling this off. You do see her swallow there, but I mean, that's a fantastic shot, though. And then we hear Norman screaming, "Oh God, mother, no, blood, blood." And then he rushes down to Marion's room here. And we get the classic shot of him turning away with his hand to his mouth. And I mean, he's absolutely terrified. And here's the other thing, folks. This is the mark of a well-made movie. We are almost an hour in before a character is killed off. Now, with a lesser film, people would have already tuned out, right? But because this is so well shot and Alfred Hitchcock is able to keep the momentum going even between scenes of violence. And truly, with a film like Psycho, we don't need continuous violence. We get this, shower kill near the beginning of the film. I mean, about 50 minutes in. Like I said, a little less than an hour in. And then pretty much the rest of the movie is like a mystery, right? I mean, I'm not saying we don't have more kills. I'm just saying, for the most part, it is a mystery. Norman's number one priority right now is to protect his mother. Because his mother's all he's got. And he still has that guilt, which, you know, by the end of the film, we're going to figure out where that immense guilt is coming from. Oh, there's no doubt the poet. You say the sequel making money was a big deal for this franchise. Yes. And had the sequel not made so much money, I don't think we would have had the others in the series. Because as much as fans of films either love or dislike a film, or love or dislike a sequel, it was really all about money. In the end, for movie studios, it's all about money. So again, Norman is being the dutiful son, and he is, you know, cleaning up after mother because he doesn't want his mother taken away from him. and he's not aware of the money. And, truth be told, even if it's my belief that even if Norman Bates knew about the $40,000 minus the 700, I don't think he would have taken it. I think he still would have taken that newspaper with the money in it and put it with the rest of Marion's things and put it in that car and put it in the swamp. And some people might say, well, Dana, you're full of baloney on that. I just have the belief that, the damn deep, I think Norman just wanted to be left alone with his mother. And, yeah, the motel was a way to make money, but and they even say something to that effect near the end of the movie, that these basically weren't crimes of profit. And I don't want to explain that too much now, but we'll see as the movie goes along. So Norman's watching as Marion's car is sinking into the swamp. And I think the little smile he gives at one point is a smile of relief. I don't feel like it's a malicious smile. But we see at one point that the car stops sinking and he looks nervous, and then it starts sinking again. And there's that little touch of a smile there. Like I said, I think that is a smile of relief and not a smile of someone that's malicious. Hey, Jordan. I always found this conversation in Sam's hardware store where the woman is wondering if, the bug killer that she's thinking about getting is painless. And here's Vera Miles, who shows up 22 years later in the sequel to Psycho. And so she's, interrogating Sam. She's wanting to know if Marion's there. Um, and there is Martin Balsam playing the private investigator. And Martin Balsam is playing Arbogast, the private investigator sent to see if he can find Marion. Sorry, folks. My throat still gets scratchy from time to time. So we see Arbogast going to different hotels and motels to see if he can find somebody that remembers seeing Marion at some point in time. And he soon finds his way to the Bates Motel. Folks, I hate to step away again, but I am going to take a little bit of a break. It's a shame that I don't really have anybody on here with me for these anymore. And sometimes we have dead space, but I hope that you guys and gals will still continue. Like, if you're watching along, just continue to watch along, and I'll be back as soon as I can. Sorry, the poet. I stepped away for a little bit. Well, we're an hour and 16 minutes in, and this is about an hour and 48-minute movie. So we don't have too much more left. We've got about, I'd say about 32 minutes left. Now, here's a cool scene coming up with Arbogast going up the steps in the Bates home. I love the way this is shot, too. And I love the way Hitchcock cuts back and forth between Mother's room and there we go. And Arbogast coming up the steps. It sets up a lot of tension. So Lila's worried that they haven't heard back from Arbogast yet. So we're led to believe that Norman has put Arbogast and his car into the swamp to get rid of it. And so he's out at the swamp when Sam shows up looking for Arbogast. So now we get introduced to Al Chambers, the pretty much like the head of the police department. So Al Chambers and his wife are concerned, obviously, because they know more about the history of Norman Bates and his mother and all that than Sam and Lila obviously do. But their concern comes mainly from the fact that everybody seems to think that Mrs. Bates is living there with Norman. So now he says Norman Bates' mother has been in the Green Lawn Cemetery for the past 10 years. So supposedly Mrs. Bates poisoned the guy she was involved with when she found out he was married. And then she killed herself. Strychnine. So we're down to the final 23 minutes of the film on about the last quarter. So we hear Mrs. Bates talking to Norman. And she's saying she's not going to hide down the fruit cellar. And Norman's telling her, they're gonna come here, mother. I just got to put you down in the fruit cellar for a few days so they won't find you. And of course, you hear mother arguing with him. we see Norman carrying what appears to be an old woman. And so Al Chambers is now telling Sam and Lila that, he went out there to the Bates Motel and he talked to Norman. And, basically that's all there is to it. There's, Norman's there alone. So Lila is convinced that her and Sam need to go out there to the Bates Motel. Because Lila says, I just won't feel right about things until we do that. $10, folks. That's all it cost to stay at the Bates Motel back in 1960. Can you imagine that? So Lila is under the impression that more than likely, Norman wanted to get Marion out of the way, that he discovered that she had $40,000 and that that would certainly help the motel. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't mean to tap that. Oh yeah, the poet. Seen every one of them. Even the remake. So Lila's wanting to go up to the house. And Lila's like, Sam, if you find Bates, I want you to keep him occupied and I'll try to find his mother. So something that I also noticed, and probably you guys and gals knows too, at this point in the film, Norman he no longer seems, amiable and calm, cool, and collected. He seems, well, not maybe agitated, but worried. So Lila has made it into the house now. And she's going to eagerly search for Mrs. Bates, because they're convinced is in the house. So Sam is starting to push Norman's buttons here by saying, if I was stuck here alone, I'd do about anything I could to get away from here. So Lila has seen Mrs. Bates's room. And everything is set up as if somebody is or has been in that room. All of Mrs. Bates's clothes are in the wardrobe. Get that quick scare in the mirror. And then we notice, the physical indentation into the bed as if someone has been lying there. So I think at this point, Sam's kind of pushing a little bit too hard here. And in a lot of ways, as the expression is, he's overplaying his hand or in danger of overplaying his hand. So now Lila is in the room where we are to assume that this is Norman's room. But it is definitely not a normal man's room, a grown man's room. It's a child's room. But that the record on the record player is Beethoven. So now all of a sudden Norman says, where's that girl you came here with? And Norman, basically knocks Sam out. And now he's coming back up to the house. And Lila's like, oh crap, I got to find some place to hide. And she hides in the stairwell. And she notices while she was hiding that there, appears to be a cellar down further down the steps. And she goes in there. And she sees what appears to be is an old woman from the back sitting in a chair, which she assumes to be Mrs. Bates. And here comes one of the big scenes where she turns the person around, and it's Mrs. Bates, but it's the corpse of Mrs. Bates. And then you have the light bulb swinging, and oh no, it's Norman, dressed as his mother all this time. And the wig comes off, and he's screaming, I'm Norma Bates. So the psychiatrist at the police station says, I got the whole story, but not from Norman. I got it from his mother. And he says, Norman Bates no longer exists. He only half existed to begin with. And now the other half is taken over. And the psychiatrist guesses for all time. And Lila says, well, did he kill my sister? And he says, well, yes and no. And so the psychiatrist goes on to say, that Marion's dead. Arbogast is more than likely dead. They're at the bottom of that swamp. And if they were to drag that swamp, they'll probably find, some other missing persons from over the years. Now, we find out that Norman murdered his mother and her lover, and that his mother was a clinging, demanding woman. But then she met another man. And it seemed to Norman that she threw him over for this man. And that pushed him over the line because he was dangerously mentally ill. And he killed him. But then he could not deal with matricide, which is the killing of a mother by their son. So he had to erase the crime. And this is where I was talking about guilt. That Norman seemed like he had a lot of guilt. And it was guilt because he killed his mother. And because he knew how to do taxidermy, he did taxidermy on his own mother to keep the body as fresh as he could possibly keep it. But the corpse didn't talk, so he had to create the voice of mother, and he would talk to the corpse, doing both voices. But then the psychiatrist said sometimes the mother part of him completely took over. And because that he was jealous of her, he thought Mrs. Bates was jealous of him. So if he got aroused by an attractive woman like Marion, then the mother side would take over and kill that person. So this is edgy too, talking about transvestites and all of that. Who would have thought that they would have been talking about that in 1960? See, this is where he says these were crimes of passion, not profit. That the swamp got the money. The poet, you say you think they should have never explained why he did it. And I could see that. I could see that. Perhaps, there was too much explanation on the part of the psychiatrist at the end of this. Now we're going to the final scene, or scenes of the movie, and I always found this very creepy, where the camera pans in on Norman, obviously, with the mother personality where it's taken over. And she said, I'll just sit here and be quiet just in case they do suspect me. They're probably watching me. Well, let them. Let them see what kind of person I am. I'm not even going to swat that fly, and you see the fly crawling on the hand. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly. And you get this very creepy smile, which fades in to the corpse of Mrs. Bates. You can see the teeth and stuff. And then the final shot of them pulling Marion's car out of the swamp. So, we have officially reached the end of Psycho. I hope that you guys and gals have enjoyed watching this along with me tonight. And the poet and Jordan, Stacy, Stalin, I want to thank you guys and gals for hanging out in the chat with me tonight as we navigated through 1960s Psycho. I had a good time going over this film again. And I'm sorry that I did have to step away about 3 times during the watch along. Hopefully in the future, maybe I'll be able to have some people on here with me. But even if I don't, I'll still be here to do these watch alongs every other weekend. And now that I'm feeling better, hopefully we can get back to the regularly scheduled programming coming up for the coming week. With Celluloid Trash and Horror Mania and all that good stuff. And of course, now that I had to delay this watch along for a couple of weeks, it's going to push back some of the others, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep on keeping on. And again, I really enjoyed watching Psycho again tonight. I enjoyed hanging out with you folks. And but I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. I'm not going to drag it out. It is 9 p.m. right now, folks. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. But for those of you that were watching along and maybe didn't feel comfortable getting in the chat, or you were watching the watch along on a device like a smart television, you weren't able to chat at the same time you were watching, I thank you for joining me as well. And for those of you that either weren't able to join at all while this was live, or you weren't able to stay for the duration, but you'll watch this on the replay, I thank you guys and gals as well. And as always, I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt ain't dirty, but I'm off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. And I'm going to try my best to do another Evil Dead Chicks Top 10 tomorrow night at 5, or tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Evil Dead Chicks Top 10 Special Effects Masters of the 80s. So be sure to tune in for that. Again, that'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow evening. And I'm out of here for now, but I'll see everybody next time.